Welcome back to another video. My name is Gordon Frayne, and today we're jumping into our weekly crypto market update. It is Friday, April 26th, 2024, and it has been another interesting week in the entire Bitcoin and crypto landscape. We've seen a little bit of recovery and a few bounces over the past week after a significant Bitcoin dip down below 60,000 last week, and things have moved upwards and bounced over the past week or so for the entire market. As we're jumping in, we can see Bitcoin currently sitting at $63,570 here around 11 a.m. on Friday, April 26th. Ethereum sitting at about 3,100. BNB at 88 billion overall market cap, sitting at about $600. Solana at 142, down slightly over the past 7 days as well. Interesting to see BNB continue to increase a bit of a gap here in terms of overall market cap on Solana. They were battling it out a few weeks ago for that fourth place, but BNB sitting strong there over the past week or two, as we can see. Jumping into the overall crypto market cap, we can see that it is up slightly over the past week. We're currently sitting at an overall market cap of 2.35 trillion. Over the past week, it is up ever so slightly from 2.33 last week. However, we did get up as high as 2.47 trillion during the middle of this week before dipping down ever so slightly again to the 2.35 trillion mark. Fear and Greed Index is currently sitting at about 70. So again, down from some of those highs that we saw over the past few weeks, particularly when Bitcoin was getting up over $70,000 before the halving. We were sitting at a Fear and Greed Index of over 81. So currently sitting at 70. That's down since the past few weeks, obviously with the prices where we're at today. However, still pretty high, and you would expect it to be maybe a little bit lower given some of the price movements we've seen for Bitcoin over the past 2 weeks. But the market has held relatively strong over the past week, and we did see that bounce back up to the mid-60s during the past week or so. Looking at the top gainers and losers for the past week time frame, we have seen the meme coins bounce back strongest over the past 7 days. Pepe and Bonk up over 42% and 75% respectively. We did see a big increase in price for Hedera this past week as well. Lots of exciting news for HBAR, with BlackRock announcing the implementation of real-world asset tokenization for money market funds on the Hedera network during the week. We dropped another video on the channel about it. You can definitely check that out. But we did see Hedera bounce up over 100% in a 24-hour period before retracing back down. We got up as high as 17-18 cents a couple of days ago, currently sitting just over 11 cents now today. Floki, again, another meme coin that has bounced pretty well. Near Protocol up about 24% on the week. We've got Algorand and Shiba up about 10 and 11%. BNB up about 7%. What else have we got here? XRP itself up 4%. Polygon up 4%. Mina up 3%. And Aave up 3% as well. Looking at some of the biggest losers of the past week, we've got Toncoin down about 15%. Sui down 12% as well. Injective down about 8%. Jupe down about 7%. Celestia down about 7% as well. Arbitrum, Pendle, Pyth, Dog with Hat is also down 4%. So Solana itself down about 2.9%. So, definitely more of a mixed market this week. We were a lot heavier on the red side of things last week, and we didn't have nearly as many tokens in the green. So definitely a healthier market in terms of growth this past week, but still about a 50-50 split in terms of gainers versus losers. However, some potential buying opportunities for some of these tokens, particularly the likes of Sui, Jupiter, Celestia, Arbitrum, in my opinion. Not financial advice as Always. Jumping over to the Bitcoin market dominance, we're still sitting at a healthy 54.86%. We did get up above 55% last week, dropping ever so slightly into this week, but Bitcoin dominance does continue, and the trend, as you can see over the past year, we're looking at the weekly chart here, but basically Bitcoin dominance has been on a very strong uptrend over the course of the past year. The ETFs helping with a lot of that since the beginning of this year, of course, but we're still not quite at an alt season just yet, and Bitcoin dominance remains pretty strong. Jumping over to the altcoin season index itself, again, as we can see, we're only on a score of 20 for the past month, which means it is more of a Bitcoin month than an altcoin month. Scrolling down to the top 50 performers over the past month, and once again, we can see that pretty much everything is in the red thanks to those market dips about 2 weeks ago. Core being the outlier here, up 124%. BNB, one of the best performers over the past month, up about 6%. Tron up about 1%. And then everything else in the red, with Bitcoin itself being down about 6.8% on the month. Some of the worst performers, looking at Uniswap, down 37%. Optimism, down about 35%. AVAX, down about 34%, Injective down 31%. So, lots of red happening with the market dip a couple of weeks ago. However, we did see a good, strong bounce over the past week, and it'll be interesting to see if we can continue to make those recoveries as we continue towards the end of April and close out this month. Jumping over to the narratives month-to-date performance, again, what we're seeing here is Friend Tech being a top performer in terms of narratives month to date. Friend Tech project itself getting a lot of hype at the moment. It'll be interesting to see how that continues to evolve. We've got ordinals, privacy, NFTs, and account abstractions as the next 4 best performing narratives month to date for April. Down the bottom end of things, we've got DEXs, identity, money markets, and GameFi being the worst performing narratives. Again, it's always worth just keeping an eye on what is performing here in terms of narratives, because every asset that you're holding is going to be part of a particular narrative, which will have its own day in the sun throughout the course of this bull cycle. So always worth keeping an eye on this and thinking about the narratives that your assets are a part of. Jumping over to the ETFs next, and there has been a little bit of a slowdown in terms of ETF purchasing over the past week or so. However, some of the numbers are still pretty incredible here when we think about the sheer amount of Bitcoin that the 9 new US spot ETFs have accumulated in the first 75 trading days of its existence. We've got BlackRock now with in excess of 274,000 Bitcoin purchased. Interesting to note that we will likely see BlackRock flip Grayscale as the largest ETF issuer in the coming weeks. They're closing in. Grayscale is now below 300,000. I think they were at about 306,000 this time last week. So the Grayscale sell-off continues. Again, if you're not familiar with this situation, Grayscale was acting in the capacity of a trust prior to all of these ETFs being approved and had accumulated over 600,000 Bitcoin over the past 5 to 6 years. That 600,000 has now, completely been annihilated down to only 298,000 Bitcoin as Grayscale continued to sell off, largely speculated due to the fact that their fees are so much higher than the other Bitcoin ETF issuers. So we're continuing to see the bleeding of Grayscale. However, most of the other ETF issuers have been eating up all the Bitcoin that Grayscale has been offloading. And like I said, we will likely see BlackRock take that first place and usurp Grayscale as the number 1 Bitcoin holder when it comes to the 9 spot ETF providers. So likely seeing BlackRock take first place in the next few weeks. Fidelity are in a third place overall here with about 153,000 Bitcoin. ARC shares and Bitwise kind of in this middle zone with about 43,000 and 34,000 respectively. And then at the bottom of the table, we've got VanEck, Valkyrie, Invesco, Franklin Templeton, Wisdom Tree, and Hashdex. So scrolling down, looking at overall numbers here, we can see that the new Bitcoin ETF issuers, excluding Grayscale, have now purchased in excess of 535,000 Bitcoin. They're at 535,500 individual Bitcoin. That is a crazy amount of Bitcoin that has been bought up by the new ETF issuers since ETF launches in January of this year. An incredible amount of Bitcoin that has been purchased. If we look at the ETF money flows over time, we can see that, again, over the past few months, it was very strong throughout February and March. However, into the past week, we have seen buying pressure slow down a little bit. We did continue to see Grayscale sell-offs, and we did even see BlackRock having a 0 day yesterday, I believe, where they had a net zero amount of Bitcoin purchased. We did also see the approval of Hong Kong ETFs in the past couple of weeks. I believe they are expected to begin trading with the new Hong Kong ETFs for Bitcoin in the next week or so. It'll be very interesting to see how much demand we see from Hong Kong and the Asian market after the popularity and success of these US ETFs since January. So again, we have seen a little bit of a slowdown in pace. As you can see here, the line beginning to flatline a little bit. However, I do think that we will begin to see this increasing again, given the fact that we've now come through the halving. The supply shock is going to begin to permeate throughout the entire market, and the scarcity of Bitcoin is going to be understood by even more people over the coming months. So lots of interesting stuff going on with the ETFs, a little bit of a slowdown in the past week or so. However, I would anticipate that picking up again. Finally, jumping over to the cycle low multiple, and again, this is just a nice way to visualize the past few Bitcoin cycles. And what we're seeing here now is that this red line represents the current Bitcoin cycle. The other colors and the other lines on the graph here represent the previous Bitcoin cycles in the lead up to and aftermath of the Bitcoin halving event, which is represented by day 0 in the middle of this chart. So the blue line represents the aftermath here of the 2012 halving, the orange line representing the aftermath of the 2016 halving, and the green line representing the aftermath of the 2020 halving. Of course, the red line here represents our current cycle, and as we can see, we have just come through the Bitcoin halving, which took place this day last week. And again, if history is anything to go by, what we can see is, we have seen parabolic and asymmetric returns and growth for Bitcoin in the 12 to 18 months after each of the three previous Bitcoin halving events. Very clear trend here with what happens when that supply shock occurs and the scarcity of Bitcoin is understood by more people. And, the supply and demand economics typically result in a parabolic move upwards for Bitcoin in those 12 to 18 months post halving. So it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out, especially with diminishing supplies of Bitcoins available on exchanges now compared to the previous few halvings, and the increased demand from ETFs that we've seen over the past couple of months within the first 75 trading days for those ETFs, and with the Hong Kong and Asian ETFs coming, London exchange traded notes coming as well for the London Stock Exchange and the whole UK market. Lots of bullish sentiment going on for everything to do with Bitcoin. Interestingly, in 2017, we did also see this kind of dip with the orange line here, kind of a very small post-halving correction before really ramping up and taking off about 18 months after putting in new all-time highs. So, we did see an all-time high for Bitcoin prior to the halving for the first time ever, and then a little bit of a correction since then. So, again, we're not here to give financial advice or predict the future precisely, but if you're looking at these trend lines and if history is anything to go by from the last 3 cycles, I think it's very clear where the price is going to go from here. So as always, a very exciting time in the market. It's been another very interesting week. Lots of bullish sentiment and bullish news with asset tokenization. We saw the news with HBAR during the week. We have seen a strong bounce for Bitcoin back up to the mid 60s, and lots of bullish sentiment around ETFs and Hong Kong ETFs, and the new issuance for Bitcoin being only 450 new Bitcoin per day coming into the market since the halving event last week. Again, obviously being cut in half from 900 per day pre-halving to about 450 per day post-halving, and that supply shock event will continue to permeate throughout the market. So, as always, if you enjoy the content, please make sure to smash the thumbs up button on your way out. Hit that subscribe button as well. We're on the road to our first 1,000 subscribers, and it would mean the world if you subscribed. And hit that bell notification icon so you can get notified. We're dropping videos pretty much every single day on the channel. You're going to want to get notified when they drop so you can hit your crypto goals. And as always, we'll catch you in the next one.